So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Ash Giddings, and welcome to today's webinar. And today's webinar is Halcyon IBM Server Suite Level 2 for beginners. And as the text says on the screen, how to get peace of mind that your core applications and processes on IBM are optimized and under control. So, my name is Ash Giddings, a pre-sales specialist at Help Systems, where I've worked for probably getting on for 15 years now. Originally employed by Halcyon, but acquired by Help Systems some 6 years ago now. So I spend most of my time when I'm not doing webinars, working in and around the automation side, so around the Halcyon and the robot and the automate side of things. And joining me today is Mike Davison. Mike, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, cheers, Ash. Mike Davison. I've worked in the IT industry all of my career, starting at 18 as a trainee computer operator. I've worked in the industry in IT operations my entire career, spanning now 32 years. Pretty much I've worked on IBM kit, but I've also worked on Unix, HP UX, DEC-VAX, digital stuff, Solaris, Linux AIX, and a whole host of other things. And I joined Help Systems around 6.5, 7 years ago now. I think I was actually poached from my previous employer by Ash.
Yes.
So I was using Help Systems software, and I liked it so much I came and joined the company.
Wonderful, wonderful. Poacher term gamekeeper, as we say in the UK then. Fantastic. Let's just move this screen on. So today's agenda, what are we going to talk about? Well, it's a beginner's course today. After implementing Halcyon, very quickly, customers become dependent on it to perform critical checks and ensure that applications are kept ticking over, and of course businesses running. So we'll be starting today's webinar by showing you how you can get the software to monitor itself to ensure A, that everything is active, and B, to get Halcyon to alert you for things going on in the product which could potentially impact your monitoring. Items such as rules being held, maybe rules being released, or even rules being deleted, and a whole plethora of things that Mike will cover. We'll then show you how you can use Halcyon in a HA environment. Next, Mike will demonstrate some of the housekeeping functions in Halcyon to keep your environment running at an optimum level. We'll then show you the benefits of the Enterprise Console, Halcyon Enterprise Console, and how it can help you to manage not just multiple IBM I partitions, but other platforms too. And then before questions, we'll show you some other things that you may not be aware of, but can definitely make your life easier. So feel free to fire any questions in, either using the questions or the chat option. You can go to webinar, and we'll get round to answering as many as we can towards the end of today's session. So IBM I Server Suites. As I say, today we're talking about this Systems Operation Suite, or Level 2 as we call it, but Level 2 is not the full picture. So Halcyon, it starts off on Level 1. This is a very much entry-level suite, very basic level of monitoring. We don't really sell much of this at all now, maybe to one or two managed service providers that just need a regular heartbeat. Most people tend to have their entry level at Level 2. So this is the eyes and ears of the machine, and the ability to monitor performance, message queues, as you'll see, lots of other things in there as well. And then as we go up to Level 3, I describe this as the devil behind the detail, whereas Level 2 has got a huge array of monitoring you can set up and receive alerts for. Level 3 gives you that devil behind the detail. You can be told that your ASP is at 98%. Level 3 will tell you what's been growing and when it grew and things like that. And then on to Level 4, that adds to the advanced job scheduler. Very simplistic. That's the general makeup of Halcyon. So a little bit about Level 2. As I say, I describe it as the eyes and the ears and the ability to monitor all of your standard daily checks, the things you do first thing in the morning. But involves having the ability to do these checks every minute of every day and not just once or twice when you have time. Right from the message monitoring element right at the start here, right at the top here, that's the ability to monitor any message queue, including QHIST. We treat that as a message queue, QSYS message, any user, device, or application message queue, all the way through to the audit journal manager, a component that straddles queue or journ and can tell you when things have been written or not been written to queue or journ, and restricted task manager, allowing you to automate those traditionally difficult to automate tasks, such as a SABSYS, a non-sys, a reclaim storage, even an IPL. All of those can be automated with restricted task manager, and you can get alerts out to the enterprise console while in a restricted state. So that's the power of restricted task manager, and then everything in between. And some of this we're going to be touching on today, and all being well, this will be the first of a series of these webinars where we'll start to unearth exactly what you've got. But before we kick things off, we're just going to run just a quick poll question, and I'm going to launch that to the screens now. So if you could just let us know which Halcyon products you own, and it might be a combination. So feel free to select whatever is applicable. So IBM iServer Suites, so this is the level 1s through to 4. You've then got the Network Server Suite. So this is a solution that covers Windows, AIX, VIOS, Linux. And then the Advanced Reporting Suite. This has the ability to talk to the IBM iServer Suite's Network Server Suite and other products, and to gather performance-related data, which then enable you to produce templated reports over that data. And then a couple of bolt-on products, what we call bolt-on products. The IBM MQ Manager enables you to monitor the moving parts of MQ, and the HAMX or Mimics Monitor, again, the moving parts of Mimics. I think pretty much that has run to completion now. So that's fantastic. Thank you for filling that in, and I'm going to pass over to Mike now. Mike, over to you. Talk about level 2 and how to monitor itself.
Cheers, Ash. Thank you very much. So there's a number of things we can do within the level 2 software to ensure that it's all running internally okay. We're going to look at the supervisor, TCP/IP sysmon rules, and admin alerts. So let's jump straight into a demonstration here. We've got my IBM i on the right-hand side here, and within Halcyon we can have the supervisor. Now the supervisor works in or lives in QCTL. So we'll take a look at that. There it is there, HAL AAA. And for each environment you've got running, and we're going to talk about environments later, you're going to have an HAL AAA supervisor running. So what does the supervisor actually do? Well, if we take option 3 from the main menu, or we can use the workmon command, which takes us to the same place, we can see at the top of our screen that we've got the monitor supervisor and that is active. And that depends on us setting each individual monitoring component to be supervised, and that's shown by the sub-column here. We can supervise entities with option 8 for supervise, and what that does is if there's ever a problem with any of these components when they're running, if they fail, they go to message wait, or they're accidentally ended, then the monitor supervisor will see that and restart it. So if I just simulate here our HemDev monitor, I'm going to go into the actual subsystem jobs there, and we find HemDev. And let's say we accidentally or deliberately kill that job. You can see that's gone to end there, and we come back here and we can see it's stopped. Then the supervisor is going to be polling every 60 seconds, and providing that this column is set to supervised, it will see that, and I'll just keep pressing refresh here, it'll see that and restart it. And importantly, it will also write an entry to the message log to say, hey, there was a problem and I've restarted this particular monitor. So there it goes, that's automatically started itself back up again. And if we go into the message log, which is our flight data recorder of everything going on in the background, we can see that we've started it there, and the supervisors also put out a message. So we know that it's been restarted by the supervisor and not just somebody using the menu. So it's been done automatically. And this will then help us to alert us. We can have alerts set up to pick that up, and we can then see that the supervisor's restarted it rather than a user. So with the TCP rules, we can also monitor Halcyon on other systems. So over here on this other machine, I've got Halcyon running. We can see that that's all active and supervised. Some of these are not supervised. This is just for the purposes of this test. And if I have a TCP rule called sysmon, I can monitor Halcyon on another system using my IBM I. If we take a look at the body of this, I've previously defined my HAL 720p9 as a remote location in my remote locations config on my Halcyon system here. And I'm saying I want to monitor everything. I could just monitor the network send and receive monitors or the critical stuff. But key to this, to setting it up simply, we can go all and just do alert for all monitors that are not held. So if I look at my other IBM I can see these are all running, but my distribution queue, which I'm not using, that's held, which means I'm not using that at all. So the monitor can ignore it. If anything else were to end, for example, let's say the log file monitor, I was to end this either deliberately or accidentally. And if the supervisor, if it wasn't supervised, you can see here, it's not supervised, so therefore it's not going to start. What's going to happen over here is that periodically that's going to poll and it's going to raise an alert if it sees the other system without that particular job running on it. So this is really useful. I mean, this will just take a moment or so to pick this up. We go back in there and look at that rule. We can see that I'm polling here every 60 seconds. So within 60 seconds, it's going to pick that up and it's going to see that that's failed on the other system and alert us to it by whatever means necessary, sending us an email or raising an alert to a console or to an enterprise console.
So this will be useful, Mike, for those that have maybe a master partition, would it? And you want that's deemed that the master needs to keep an eye on other partitions?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my managed service providers uses a master partition to push out rules, similar rules to different systems. And it uses this very method to check that the network send and receive monitors are up because they're absolutely critical. So there we go. It's brought up raised an alert here. We can see the Hemlog monitor is inactive on the remote location HAL 720p9. So that would also be up there on my console, my green screen console on here. So that's monitoring the jobs essentially. Now the message log, this shows is our data recorder or our flight data recorder. It shows everything that's going on within Halcyon. So if something's occurring or something's stopping or restarting, and what we can see on here is these messages can actually be trapped by what we call an admin alert. So from the configuration menu, option 42, we can set up admin alerts from option 12. And option 12, admin alerts, is essentially a list of Halcyon messages that we want to alert to a particular queue. And we'll set the queue by using F17 here. Now I like to, on customer systems, segregate this. So I create a queue user sys Halcyon ADM message queue. The default is QSysOpera, but there's a lot of stuff goes into QSysOpera. And this enables me to see those messages all segregated in here, and if there's any problems going on. And these are the ones that we want to know about or be alerted to, things going on within Halcyon. So what I would then do is, once I've set up that admin alerts, those admin alert message queue, and created the queue, I can then quite simply monitor that with a message queue rule and a single catch-all rule that literally picks up all of the messages from any component. And what we can do on here is, let's say, for example, I went in here and unsupervised something. So I was messing around and I unsupervised those particular items. Well, that's not going to generate an alert. It is going to write a message to the message log, showing me here. And if I go into the alert log, we can see that that's now picked that up. And if I look on my message console, I can see that that's telling me that could have sent an email to somebody, alerting me to the fact that now supervision is disabled. And this can be set up, these admin alerts can be set up for practically anything within Halcyon. If you can see it in the message log, you can set up an admin alert for it. So for example, rule groups being held, rule groups being deleted or changed. So if you want to keep a tight control of your Halcyon environment, this is the way to do it. Over to you, Ash.
Fantastic, Mike. And that's particularly useful if you've got more than one person that's responsible for sysadmin. You really want to keep an eye on that. Wonderful. So let's take a little look at high availability. Now, many of us, or many of you, have some form of HA now. It's no longer exclusively for those with deep pockets, and with many MSPs offering to host target partitions, or increasingly common, running a HA target in the cloud. For many of us, looking after a HA environment is the norm. But what's the best way to use Halcyon in a HA environment? Really, with this type of HA, I'm talking about logical replication based on journals or remote journaling, where you have typically a source and a target machine, or a production and a backup machine. Many actually use the target machine for reporting, maybe for BI, for querying, for backups. So although the target is not running a production environment per se, it's crucial to your business, or to you and your business. And as such, you do want to conduct some level of monitoring on it. It won't be the same as the source or the prod machine. It's more like a slimmed down set of requirements, a different and slimmed down set of requirements. So how do we do that? Well, there's some documentation that we have, and if you want a copy of it, please let us know and we can send that through to you. But typically, you would install Halcyon on both the source and the target, or the production and backup, and you would install Halcyon into two different environments on each. You'd install it into a prod environment, you'd install it into a HA environment. You'd do the same over here as well. If there's one environment on the machine, we tend to stick to prod, but for two environments, we typically, our standard is prod and HA. Now, this one here, this one green, this is active, this is on prod, this is active most of the time. On the target machine, it's dormant, it's inactive. And what we do at regular intervals to suit you, whether that's daily, hourly. I know some customers even do it every 5 minutes, but they have quite an active scheduler. They do what we call an impenv, and they pull in the settings from this working environment into this dormant environment. And vice versa. On this dormant HA environment on the production machine, they do the same. They do a HAL HA impenv, and that pulls this subset, or this reduced monitoring element here. This pulls that into this dormant environment here. And the above continues really until you do a role swap. And then in the event of a role swap, simply all you need to do is you perform your role swap and you change the active environments. Whatever was active before becomes dormant, whatever was dormant becomes active. And typically you would put that in your role swap script. One thing I forgot to mention is it's key that you exclude the Halcyon suffixed typically prod and HA libraries from your HA replication tool. It can get messy. You can get locks if you're using your HA tool to replicate Halcyon. That's why we recommend to remove them from HA solutions and have an active and dormant environment on each partition. Mike, I think we're back to you. What are we talking about next?
Setting up housekeeping. So it's really easy within Halcyon to set up housekeeping for your actual machine nice and quickly and easily. And some of the things we're going to look at is spooled files, your IFS, journal receivers, and inactive user profiles, just to give you a quick sample of those. So spool files on your system, they take up a job space. And if you have thousands or tens of thousands of spool files on your machine, it counts as a job on the machine and it has to be maintained. So elements within Halcyon that can help you with that, you can look at the total number of spool files on your system. You can build up spool files on specific queues or groups of queues. You can distribute files out. So if you have a backup report, you can trap that within Halcyon and email it out to an email address, and then you can delete it from your system or move it to an archive queue and then have a rule over that queue that gets rid of the get rid of those files after a certain age, after maybe 14, 21 days old. We also have in level 3 an archiving suite, which allows you to archive files into physical files and index them and be able to retrieve them at a later date. So if lots of spool files are important to you, you can make use of that in level 3. So within Halcyon, to get you going quickly, we always ship a bunch of what we call example rules, and they're always entitled example, as you can see in here. And this is out of the can, so to speak. And very quickly, if I wanted to, for example, age all of my spool files in, let's say, QEasy job log, I could quite easily set up a QEasy job log queue in here. So I've now created a queue, and then I can quite simply copy to QEasy job log. SPQSys. There we go. And I've copied that rule 930 into that queue. And because I've copied it, it's held, so we're not introducing a configured rule or an unconfigured rule too early. So I'll change the sequencing on that to rule 10. I want to delete everything older than 365 days. Now, the thing with output queue rules is depending on how frequently I want it doing is when I'm going to send, when to monitor it. So I only want to do spool file aging once a day because it's resource intensive. So I'm going to set that to run at 1 in the morning for 5 minutes. And if we find anything, I'll suspend for, let's say, 20 minutes. And what that'll do is at 1 AM every day of the week, it'll look at the contents of QEasy job log, and anything it's going to find in there that's over 365 days old, it's quite simply going to run an action here, a command action to delete that spool file. It'll then close the alert that's raised because of that and tidy itself up. So that's a real quick way. I've done that in less than 90 seconds to maintain QEasy job log for all those job logs that we don't want on our system. Now the IFS can be a tough cookie to manage and control. It's a common location now for log files and FTP files being dumped in there and archives and things like that. If you want to track detailed growth, you can do that with level 3 disk space manager, and that takes it down to a very detailed fine level. However, if we just want to do some basic sort of housekeeping on a periodic basis, I've got a system management group that I've created here already. Again, let's have a look in the example rules. And here we can see IFS remove stream file objects over 365 days. So I'm just going to copy that into my sys management rule group. We'll bring that to the top and we'll expand it. And we can see in there, I've got a 960. So if I wanted to, I could actually just resequence that by 38 against the group. And that gives me some nice numbers there. Again, this is held because it's been copied. We don't want to introduce a rule that's not been properly configured just yet. So again, this is going to use a bit of resource. So I might set that for 2 a.m. every morning. And again, set the suspend on alert for 20 minutes. And then all I've got to do is set the path where I want to clean up. So that might be a directory called archive, for example, if I spell it right. So anything in there, that's a stream file that's older than, or was created older than 365 days ago. There's other options you can do. We're going to get rid of that as well by simply running a command action with a remove link. Obviously, that can be quite destructive. So I would suggest raising some alerts to start with and seeing that it's actually going to do what you want it to do before you set that hair running, so to speak. Again, did that very quickly. Journal receivers, they can build up and occupy considerable space, especially the audit journal. And I've got in here in my sys management rule, I've got a rule for deleting Q or journ receivers that are older than 30 days. Very similar principle. It's an object monitoring rule. I've set that to run at 3 a.m. and because I've got to suspend, it will run once and then it won't run until the following day. In here, I'm looking in QGPL for my ORD receive, object type journal receivers. I'm looking for a last change date that's greater than equal to 30 days. We set that up, and quite simply, when we find one, we're going to run a delete journal receiver against it, ignoring the inquiry message if one's raised, if it's not been fully detached. So the important thing to remember here is that the action monitor runs these commands. The action monitor is this job here, how act, and if we press F15, we can see those jobs running in the Halcyon subsystem, and I can see that that is running under the user QSysOper. Now that user has to have the authority to be able to delete those files if you're going to do that. Okay, so you could end up with some permissions problems. QSysOper doesn't have authority to that library and those objects. Finally, inactive users. Well, inactive profiles, they're a security risk and they take up space occupied by owned objects that are no longer required. So again, I've got an object management rule in here, looking at user profiles that have not signed on for 30 days or more. Again, I probably want to only run this once a day. So let's run that at 9 o'clock in the morning so that we get an alert as we arrive to work. We'll put that into a suspend. And this one, I'm using what we call a record count. And if your IBM version is older than 7.1, then IBM introduced these QSys2 SQL queries. And if you don't know about these, I highly recommend you go and look into them because this can give you all sorts of information about your system. And we can use that to good effect in here by doing a select of the username and the previous sign-on date from that user info table, where the previous sign-on is less than the current date minus 30 days. And I can actually just, in fact, if I just go and let's go and turn this on, we'll release this rule straight away. That's that one there. So we'll put a 6 against that and we'll let that cook. And if I put an 8, I can see any alerts that have been raised previously for this. We can see that there's none there. That's just going to take a moment to run because we're checking every 60 seconds on that one. Of course, it's not going to run now because I've set the time on this one. Actually, that's okay because it's 24/7, 365. So we should see that come through fairly shortly. And in fact, there we do. There we go. I've got a 5 against that. I can see that we've found 8 matching records, so I know there's 8 users. And if I scroll down, I can actually see the selected fields in there. So I can see those user accounts and their previous sign-on times. So that's something that's using the QSys2 queries from IBM to really good effect. And I'm going to hand back to Ash now, who's going to show you a couple of slides on the enterprise console.
Cool, thanks, Mike. So many of you will be using the Enterprise Console, I'm sure, but some of you may not be aware of how it can really help you to manage not just IBM I, what we're talking about today, but other platforms such as Windows, Linux, both Linux on Power and x86, AX and Vios. In addition, and many people do this, they use the Enterprise Console as a trap target for any SNMP capable devices. You simply need the trap receiver just bolted onto the Enterprise Console, and then on your SNMP devices, simply use the IP address of the console as a trap target. The idea is that we make the Enterprise Console your single pane of glass. So what have we got, or how can the Enterprise Console help you? There's a number of things here. At some stage, you've got to move with the times, whether you like it or not. And as good as the green screen or 5250 interface is, many businesses now have to rely on more people that are not overly familiar with IBM I. And what better way to make them feel comfortable than allowing them to manage alerts irrespective of platform in the same way, the Enterprise Console. I'm not overly familiar with AX, definitely not so much as Mike anyway. And we manage our boxes internally via the Enterprise Console. I don't need to know anything about AX to set rules up and to manage alerts. I get it through the same graphical interface. It also allows you to centralize alerting, whether you're running a Halcyon across disparate platforms or not. You can use the Enterprise Console to really bring everything together. I mentioned the SNMP capabilities earlier. There's also a syslog input. So if you have other tools in play for other platforms or applications, you can point them all to the Enterprise Console and use the Enterprise Console as your manager of managers or your manager of tools. Just working our way down the list here, alert grouping. The Enterprise Console's got a neat feature where you can group identical alerts from the same device that are in the same status and have them displayed as one. So whether you've got 1 or 301 alerts that are identical, they take up the same space on the Enterprise Console. If there's more than one, it will have a visible indicator as to how many of them you have. And this really frees up valuable space on the console for potentially more critical alerts that you may have missed previously. Smart escalation. Rather than reply or somebody seeing an Enterprise Console, you can layer up the escalation behind the scenes. So for example, once an alert has been on the console for maybe 5 minutes and hasn't been acknowledged or closed, you can have it emailed automatically to the support team. 5 minutes later, if it's still there, you can have that sent to maybe a team leader, and then maybe 5 minutes later still, you can fire off an SMS, all from the Enterprise Console. And the idea behind this is for the alert to come and find you, to come and tap you on the shoulder, as opposed to you having to go looking and checking for alerts at regular intervals. Let it come and find you. Service desk integration. The Enterprise Console's got the ability to output alerts in the form of an email, as I just mentioned, and an SNMP trap, both automatically or via a right mouse click. And again, this can be done for all or if a defined subset of alerts. For example, maybe all of those that you've prefixed with a P1 for priority run, maybe you want those escalated to a service desk application for an automatic ticket generation. But you can do it on source or product or text string or day or date or anything like that. The choice is yours, really. And then on to mobile apps. Many people use these, and these have had a bit of a makeover. So these are downloadable from the App Store or from Google Marketplace. There's an Apple Android app, and it's free. You would download it, install it. You would need to open up port 15,000 and have that forwarded bidirectionally to enable you to reply. You would then need to create a user account on the enterprise console itself or on the enterprise server. Typically, this is a different account from the one you would sign on with on your laptop, but you would sign in, as it says on the left-hand screen here. You would log in, and lo and behold, you would see all of the open alerts, list of open alerts in here, and this will be exactly what you see if you was running this on your laptop. You can click into these alerts as well and get the alert details. So that's the first and second level text. You can see who generated it, the rule that generated it, and everything. In addition, you can add comments to it, again from your mobile phone. You can also acknowledge it, and acknowledge an alert, whether you do it from the green screen, the enterprise console, via an email, via an SMS reply, or via the app. It stops any escalation, so it puts the brakes on any escalation. And then, of course, you can close these alerts as well. And again, that stops escalation. So incredibly powerful, quick as well, and enables you to monitor your estate while on the go. And I know Mike's going to spend some time now actually showing you some of this in real life.
Thanks, Ash. So we'll just do a quick live demo here. So here's my enterprise console. Nice single pane of glass for all of my alerts coming in here. As Ash talked about, for different systems we can centralize. You can see I've got Windows, FiOS, SNMP devices, Linux devices down the side, AIX here. And it can bring all of my alerting onto this central pane of glass. The great thing with the enterprise console is it's highly configurable. We can put it into an edit mode here, and we get this layout tool. We can drag the panels around, we can resize them, we can decide what's being shown in each of them, and then we can save that layout and have a different views. So this is the default shift layout like this, and I've got a tabbed view. So I've created tabs with all system alerts on here. I'm going to have my Windows alerts separate, my Unix alerts separate. Here's my critical alerts, and here's my warning alerts. Let's go back to all those. Most of these are informational, hence why they're not showing there. If I go to this one here, we've got tab devices on the left. I can collapse all of that, and it instantly shows me that I've got a problem in my IBM I side of things. I can expand that to see that it's MD Halsys that's the issue. And the highest criticality of alert is always shown at the top. So these are warning alerts here, okay, which will be this one here. Now you remember previously, whilst I was on the IBM I, we did some changes and they were picked up by admin alerts. Well, I've also had those come through to my enterprise console here, as you can see. And here's when I stopped the monitor on the other system. It picked that up. It's also relayed it to the enterprise console. Ash talked about alert grouping. You can see here this rule I set up and released about the number of users who have not signed on for more than 30 days. So we can see there that it's showing that there's 9 alerts there actually, because I've not stopped that rule. I've badly configured this because it's coming out every couple of minutes or so, which is not ideal because this is spamming my console. But you can see there with the alert grouping set on that that's actually not taking up too much space when the grouping's closed. I can then click in, I can have a look, I can see all of my alert detail down here. In fact, it's all in there as well. Or I can double click and pop it out and see where it's come from, what generated it, and all of the details for that particular alert. So what I'll do is, let's just jump onto my IBM I here, which is this rule here. Let's put a 27 against that and just hold that rule for the time being, so I'm not getting any more of those out. And we can show you something else. If I come into my performance sys management rule here, this is just an alert I've set up to alert me if my ASP is greater than 30%, because obviously this is just a test system. And in the action schedule here, I've set that as a warning, and I've overridden the command text there as well. So I'm just going to release that one on there. And we can talk about the, whilst we're waiting for that to come through, we can talk about the escalation. And within the enterprise console, we can have these rules, and I've got a sample one here. This rule is picking up my critical alerts. I specify the criteria of what I want to be picked up. So I'm saying this is critical. I don't care what source it's from or where it's come from or which device it's come from. I'm going to perform these actions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the display after 1 minute, and then I'm going to send an email, and then after 2 minutes I'm going to change the display again. So we can demo that. What I'll do from here is I'll just send a quick console message that we use for testing. I'll just pop that on there. So this is a critical message, and it's just got the word test in it. So that's sent through, and we see immediately that that's gone up to critical on there. Let's minimize that down. There's my ASP message that's come through. I can see there that the actual ASP is at 36.15%. Obviously, all of these messages can be customized to suit your need. They can be put in your local language if English is not the first language. And we see here the test alerts come through with critical. It's obviously written to the top here. And on here, we can see the actions. And I can see that that's been logged as complete. At 15:42, it's going to do something else. So if we look at the time on this machine, it's just 15:41 at the moment. So that's going to change in a moment, and we'll see what happens when that goes through. In the meantime, we can talk about service desk integration, and that is achieved by help desk defaults on here. And we can send emails direct from, I'll just drag this down so we can see that occurring at the top there. You can see now in the background actually that alert is now highlighted in red. So it's drawing your attention. So if this was on a wallboard in an office or in an ops center, that would draw your attention to the screen, and we've got this big red bar with the white lettering on it. And in another 60 seconds, we're going to get an email from that because nobody's acknowledged it. Going back to the help desk defaults, we can specify help desk defaults. So we can push that into your automatic service desk, and we can put a subject matter in here, which for this instance, it says create, which is going to create a ticket. And then we can specify information with keywords showing the device, the IP address, and the message that's going to be forwarded on. And we can then have an action on a rule. If we do this here and we come to the actions, I could add an action in here that quite simply raises a help desk ticket. And that's going to use the defaults that I've already got set up in there. And that, or we could put a delay on there if we want to. We could wait 5 minutes before we raise a ticket for that. So by doing that, it's going to escalate on the console. It's going to send us an email. And if we click onto the console and take a look at that, so it says it's complete, that it's sent the message. Let's check the emails. Here's my emails, 15:43, and there I can see that I've got all of the details in there. So that's now been escalated into my email box, and that will continue to do that. The next thing it will do at 15:45 is that's going to start making that flash in the background to really draw some attention to it. So these are the number of different ways that we can escalate on the console, and we can do different things with it. It's a really powerful tool. And if you've got more than one IBM I, if you've got 2 or more, then I definitely recommend using the Enterprise console. It comes free with level 2, and all you have to do is provision a Windows server for it. Over to you, Ash.
Fantastic. Well, we're kind of pushed up against time, but let's overrun slightly, Mike, and
Okay.
we'll cover a few of these, shall we? I think you're going to talk about these rather than show them. Is that right?
Yeah. I can show as well. So multiple environments. Well, Halcyon, as Ash alluded to earlier, for HA systems, we can install multiple environments. And here on this machine here, you can see that I have 6 environments installed. I use them at different levels for testing customer issues. As a customer, you could also install a version and then test it, see if it works okay for you. You can upgrade your test version. You can have HA and prod versions. And it's really great because you're segregating those environments out. Really powerful part of the software. Starting Halcyon at IPL time, well, that's quite simple. We make that really easy for you. Off the utilities menu, option 41, option 12, you can do start add, and that will add an auto start job entry. It's telling me it's already in there for that job into QCTL. If we look at the work with subsystem description for QCTL, 5 against there, and choose option 3, we can see that that's in there. This isn't the way we recommend doing it, but it's dead easy to do it. If you want to do it properly, we recommend putting a CL program, a line into your CL program, the QStruct, your startup program, to call the start of monitoring, which is the command strmon. So you'd call, for example, halprod strmon, and you do that at the very end of your CL struct program, because that means that everything is started on your system, and now you're ready to start monitoring on it. Just let me know when you want me to finish, Ash.
No, that's fine. Let's cover system defaults, Mike, and then we'll push on. We've got a couple of questions.
Okay, so system defaults, these are essentially, they're like IBM system values, and they determine how your product operates, or how the Halcyon product operates. Access through the config menu, option 7. There are hundreds of these. There's literally, I think there's 300. And these do everything from setting the default suspend time, to setting the maximum number of auxiliary monitors, to setting the length of your log files. And I definitely take a look at the log life ones. Anything that ends in a log life, make sure that it's set to something like 90 days. Because ordinarily you find a problem after the event, you go back to look at it, you might call support, and by the time we get around to getting together and looking at it, the items have gone out of the log file. So I always recommend set your log life system defaults to 90 days. You can go back 3 months then.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. Well, we have overrun slightly, but let's cover a couple of questions. Somebody has asked, can I do BRMS monitoring? I know you've done this, Mike, so you can have that one.
Oh yeah, nice and easy. That's straight back into the live demo there, and we have it's built in. So BRMS queue, use a BRMS message monitoring queue in there. We've got some rules already set out for inquiry messages, selected BRMS messages, so you can go in and decide which ones you actually want to choose out of there. You could look at that and see, oh, that's a volume can't be used at this time. This one's no volumes in a category, and these are all listed in the BRMS template guide. There's some other rules in there as well as part of performance to make sure that the subsystem is up and running, and various things in there as well. So built into the software.
Fantastic, nice, easy one. I can take this this next one. We're running level 1. Is there an easy way to migrate to level 2? Yes, there is. Depending on what you installed initially, it may just be a license key change. You may already have the software, but worst case scenario, you simply need to download level 2 from the website and upgrade it. It won't impact your level 1 at all. You'll have a level 1 key, and just speak to your RSM, and they can give you a level 2 trial key for enable you to play. So we are nearing the end now. I'm just going to launch the second poll question before we finish off. So really, how can help systems help you today? I'd like to thank Mike for what he's done. He showed us an enormous amount of stuff. Maybe you'd like to see a demo, a more in-depth demo as to some of the stuff that he's shown you today, or maybe you'd like to trial level 2. Maybe you're running one, or maybe you're running a competitive solution. You'd like to take a proper trial out. Or when I spent a lot of my time, tech updates. Myself and some colleagues do a number of tech updates where we share what Help Systems has been doing. You can share your current pain points, and they tend to take 40-45 minutes. So maybe that's something you'd like to do, or maybe you want to do all 3 of those. So we'll just leave that open for a few more seconds. That's fantastic. Thank you very much for your responses. I'm going to close that out now, and just hopefully move to the last slide, and that's just to thank you for your time today. Thank you for the 50 minutes that you've spent with us, and thank you very much, Mike, for showing you all that you've shown.
No worries at all, Ash. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.